Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here. Live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzen and Aaron McIntire. I'm Steve Deace. A couple of very quick housekeeping items right after the show today. I am heading to Phoenix, hopping on a jet airplane and heading to Phoenix. Going to do an event tomorrow night there at Dream City Church. It's the monthly Freedom event. That's hosted by Charlie Kirk there. If you are in the Phoenix area, I'd love it if you could come by and say hello. It'd be great to see you and connect with as many of you in that area as possible. So I'll be doing the show tomorrow from Phoenix. You guys are going to get original programming the entire time. I'm going to do the show tomorrow from Phoenix. And then on my way back, while I'm flying back on Thursday, we have a special treat for you, a special edition of the Steve Deace Show. We taped this just a couple of days ago with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. We go in depth with him with a long form interview, looking back on his career, looking at where he thinks the country is now, and then looking towards the future and what is at stake as well. Those are all topics that Newt has in a forthcoming book that is out today, in fact, that we're going to be previewing with him later on this week. An interview you do not want to miss. Todd and Aaron set in for that entire interview, and you'll see their commentary after the fact, just how blown away they were by what the speaker had to say, the former speaker had to say on many fronts. So that's coming your way on Thursday as I'm matriculating back here to the Midwest. Speaking of books, we are down to just the last couple hundred autographed editions of Richie Meets the Rainbow, the hardcover edition, the only full-sized hardcover autograph edition we're ever going to sell. We're down to the last couple of hundred copies before the book hits retail. Mañana, that's right, tomorrow is when the book hits retail. So if you want to get the autographed version, go to richiemeetstherainbow.com, RICHIE, for richiemeetstherainbow.com. And I've got something special planned for what I think we could do with the retail version, especially because that version is going to be more affordable as well. All right, so we'll mention that to you a little bit later on. richiemeetstherainbow.com, there is where you can go for the autographed hardcover full-size editions. We're down to just about 200 of those left. If you want to get your copy now before they're gone, and then once they're gone, they're never coming back. richiemeetstherainbow.com, and I just need to say personally thank you to all of you for how many of these you guys have bought. My company is going to be in the black with this investment in this book before it ever hits retail. And because of the subject matter and the turnaround time to get this out in time for Pride Month, we had to do this one. We had to produce this one ourselves, like we did Nefarious. And you guys made it so that this book is going to be profitable before we see what the Gen Pop does with it. So thank you very much. That is very appreciative. And hopefully you appreciate the book as well. richiemeetstherainbow.com, RICHIE, for richiemeetstherainbow.com. Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I just got an email. You're going to be on, I think, TBN tonight talking about this.
Yes.
From what I saw. So if you want the special edition of Richie Meets the Rainbow, clock's a ticking.
That's a good point. I had completely forgotten that is going to be tonight as well. So yeah, we're busy doing a little bit of promotion for this right now. So
you haven't even done the Faucian bargain sell on this one, huh?
I have not. Yeah.
Wait, you said, I know you've bought one, but how about you buy a second one for a special friend that may really need to read this?
That's how many. I mean, I got all your receipts. We sent hundreds of copies of that book to Anthony Fauci's office, hundreds of them. So, but it's funny you should mention that because that's a little bit what I have in store later this week for the retail version. All right. So, great minds think alike there. So, yeah, I figured it worked once. So well, and stop and think about who's the most deserving audience for this. I've got a couple of ideas. All right. Nice. So that's coming your way a little bit later on this week. All right. All right. Here's what's coming your way on today's show. We got a jam-packed show for you today. Fake news or not, coming your way next hour, as well as Pop Culture Tuesday as well. Do we truly have Pride Month in retreat? We're going to discuss that for Pop Culture Tuesday. At the bottom of the hour, we have been covering this sordid saga of Congressman Cory Mills. And this all basically got exposed because my man here, while running a scam, you got to be very careful when you're running a scam that a lot of times you ask the wrong chick out. And that's how stuff ends up coming out. Know what I'm saying? Well, Mr. Mills asked the wrong chick out. All right. And it just so happens the chick that he asked out, that he made a poor life choice among apparently, allegedly, many other poor life choices. It just turns out that the chick he made a really poor life choice by asking out is our dear friend, colleague, and sister, Jill Savage. And essentially she's like, maybe I should just, before I go out with the guy,
Let's find out.
let's just check out. I mean, we went to North Carolina, did some charitable work together. I mean, he seems like a cool dude, but, maybe I should just, do my homework before I say yes, Yeah. Mr. Mills might want to, right now is probably wishing he would have stuck to some, maybe a far less vulnerable and naive target than our very own Jill Savage. All right. But it's her story to tell, and we're going to let her tell it here at the bottom of this hour. All right. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I have seen some things in my 19 years in this movement. I have seen some things. I have heard some things. I ain't ever heard anything like this. This is... Do kids say cray cray still? Is that done now, Aaron?
I think we can bring it back for this.
This story, I'm not even sure in 18 minutes Jill will be... I'm just going to say what happened, and then we're just going to sit back and see how long it takes her to tell us this story. It's insane.
Several weeks ago, I'm not a morning person. So whatever I see first in the morning, usually it's in one ear, out the other, okay? It's just completely like it never even happened. But I open up X one morning as I'm waking up, and it was several weeks ago. I can't remember where the account came from. I think it was maybe at the time that the Blaze was working on this, but I saw a thread with some of these details about Cory Mills. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is some Anon burner account is tweeting this. And then the Blaze reported and confirmed everything that I had seen. It's just mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. It's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. So we'll let Jill tell the story when we get to the bottom of the hour. But first, Aaron has a story to tell with his rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by more on the Boulder terrorist. Authorities investigating the Islamist terrorist attack in Boulder say the suspect, Mohamed Soliman, expressed in the aftermath that he'd willingly do it again and said he wished to kill as many Zionists as possible. Soliman, who I'll remind you is in the country illegally, is being charged federally with a hate crime. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says,
this administration has done more than any administration to curb this violence and to curb illegal immigration. We secured our border in record time, but we're also tightening up our visa process and our legal immigration process. And we know that this individual, this terrorist, was allowed into this country by the previous administration, was foolishly given a tourism visa, and then was illegally allowed to stay. These individuals are going to be deported, and we're not going to tolerate such violence in our country.
In other news, President Trump is expected to communicate with Chinese Secretary Xi Jinping this week or very soon for trade talks. Also, the Atlanta Federal Reserve is now projecting that Q2 GDP will rise to 4.6%. A new Pew survey finds 50% of liberal identifying women under the age of 30 say they have a mental health issue. Also, more liberal men under the age of 30 say they have mental health conditions than both moderate and conservative women under 30. And voters who report excellent mental health identify as conservative versus liberal at a 51-20 clip. Nevertheless, Minnesota Governor Permission Structure says,
I think, this is me just pontificating for what it's worth, social media and other things have disconnected people more than they were. We were more connected in my generation. It was easier to be a kid when I was growing up. And I've always said this as a teacher, if you don't give a kid a place to belong, they'll go find one. So why you want them to be involved in sports and music and things in school, because they will go find a group of folks. And I think Donald Trump understands belonging, understand groups. I mean, you look at it. He gives them a uniform, the red hat. He gives them some chants, some talking points, whatever. It's not all that different than when we build sports teams in high school. You belong, you're part of this. It's not so much the policies. I think it's incredibly dangerous. But I don't think we went out to get them. We didn't out to make them feel a part of this.
Well-known theologian N.T. Wright went viral earlier this week after he expressed his belief that in some cases, baby murder is actually okay.
In fact, there are many, many cases where it is about the mother's health versus the health of the child or whatever. And particularly that, as you cited, in cases of rape or in cases of incest, there may be a very, very strong argument for saying this ought never to have happened, and with sorrow, because we do not want to do this in principle, but with sorrow and a bit of shame, the best thing to do is as soon as possible to terminate this pregnancy. Now, I've seen the debates, I've read books about the debates as to at what point it's okay or at what point it becomes not okay. And I know that in my own country, people have pushed for the legislation to be allowed to say right up to the moment before the woman is ready to give birth, that if they decide for whatever reason on an abortion, then that's okay. And that I find not only wrong but repulsive, because if you wait till the child's been born and then say, well, we didn't really want a girl this time, so we'll just get rid of her, then that would be a criminal act, and quite rightly so. That would be murder, and it would be a pagan thing. This is something we must never forget, that in the ancient world, people regularly, when they had a child they didn't want, especially if it was a girl, in principle, this is not something which we should welcome. It is not something which we should collude with. At the same time, there may be certain exceptions, of which severe deformity might be one, of which certainly incest and rape would be others. And in those cases, I would say the sooner the better, because at a certain point, and I am not medically qualified to say at what point I would draw a line, then this is a viable human being that should then be cherished.
Now today, he's going viral for outright heresy.
Do you need to believe in a physical bodily resurrection, as you've argued in Resurrection of the Son of God, in order to be a Christian?
Thanks, Mike, and thank you to Craig for this question. And like all quotations taken out of context, in order to understand it, you have to go back into the context. I think that the context came originally from a book which I wrote 25 years ago with my late lamented friend Marcus Borg, an American theologian and writer who he and I studied the same time in Oxford. We didn't actually know each other then, but we had the same teacher. And when we did meet, we had a lot in common, and we became good friends, and I'm still in touch with his widow and so on. Maggie and I stayed with them and they with us, and so I got to know Mark quite well. Now, Mark had come from a very fundamentalist Lutheran background where you had to believe this and this and this and this and this, and he'd found it all completely deadening and didn't do anything for him and so on. And then he gave it all up. But then in early middle life, through a series of extraordinary spiritual experiences, he came back into faith, and Jesus became enormously important to him, and his prayer life took off again. But because he had been kind of bullied as a young person by a kind of dogmatic, you've got to believe this, that, and the other, he had got into the position where anything like bodily resurrection, that was simply unspiritual. He was basically some kind of a Christian Platonist. So I want to say normal Christian life involves believing that God raised Jesus bodily from the dead. But there are many people who are earnestly seeking Jesus and acclaiming him as the light of the world or as their Lord, for whom that penny hasn't dropped yet. And so I was not prepared to say that Marcus Borg praying like that was not a Christian, but I would say and did say, and I would tease him about it, that I think he was a muddled Christian, and that I would love and hope and pray that he would come through that muddle. I don't think Marcus ever did. Does that mean in the great last assize that God will say this to him or that to him? That's God's business. I was not prepared to say this man is in no sense a Christian.
Auntie Wright does not appear to be finishing well, just like this montage. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's montage, brought to you by friends over at Taiga Coolers. You've heard me talk about them before. We are thrilled to have them back just in time for cooler season, otherwise known as summertime. They are the real deal, 100% American-made, people who still believe in self-reliance, craftsmanship, good old-fashioned freedom, tough, dependable, ready for anything, whether you're ranching, fishing, tailgating, or just trying to survive the summer with your dignity intact. But here's what really makes them special, too. Customization. Taiga isn't just slapping stickers on a box. No, they let you design your own cooler. You can do company logos, team colors, family names, scripture verses, patriotic designs. You dream it, they'll build it for you. Not just cookie cutter branding either. This is your story built into a high performance product. And again, these guys have the same value system as you do, which is why they make excellence in their coolers. All right. So Go to TaigaCoolers.com, T-A-I-G-A for TaigaCoolers.com. That's TaigaCoolers.com. Get your custom cooler built your way by folks who still believe in faith, family, and the free market. That's TaigaCoolers.com, T-A-I-G-A. Tell them Steve Deace sent you. Use my code Steve, by the way. They'll give you 10% off at Taiga Coolers. Living the cooler life with the code Steve at Taiga Coolers, T-A-I-G-A, TaigaCoolers.com. These clips of N.T. Wright are, unfortunately, the necessary, prescribed, serendipitous bookend to the photo that we showed you and spent our opening monologue discussing yesterday.
Which made a big impact on a lot of people.
I did receive a lot of impact,
Yes.
a lot of feedback on
tell.
that. Yes. That was a watermark of being, that photo yesterday was a watermark of being conquered by the spirit of the age. And if you go back and listen to yesterday's opening monologue, I wanted to start Aaron's photo that he screen captured there back to front. And I started with the fact that here's this illegal alien terrorist bragging over the scorch marks he has caused by the carnage he's responsible for. And in the backdrop, there is a pride tranny flag on a government building there in Boulder, Colorado, right over his shoulder. And the point that I made yesterday is we have to start back to front because it is the abrogating of our institutions. And it is the hanging of the banner of the forces that have conquered us that gave way for the kind of thing that would have just been never even contemplated by previous generations. Just never even contemplated that this would be permitted. And now it's just another headline like bombing or firebombing the Pennsylvania governor's office, murdering the Messianic Jews that are Israeli embassy officials. It's just it's just another day that ends in Y around here. And when I talked about the church abrogating its authority, pretending as if there are such things as neutral spaces, allowing itself to be disarmed and disarming itself so that it would eventually be replaced by the new worldview, the new religion, the spirit of the age. What you hear there in those clips from N.T. Wright, sadly, from arguably the greatest theologian that the UK has produced in the last century, that is sadly every bit the captivating, all-encompassing snapshot of how the church has failed the West in this era, that the signs of the times of that failure yesterday's photo was. But what's past is prologue. So because these events did not occur in order, we're discussing them out of order. But the reality is the two clips of N.T. Wright are what set the stage for the clip that we talked about yesterday. And N.T. Wright is Legion. There are two things that you see at work in this N.T. Wright clip. I want to discuss both of them. The second, not finishing well, I'll get to in a minute. That is unique to a particular generation. We are watching this play out right now. But you've heard me talk about on this show before that the great heresy within the church, the spirit of the age, the woke religion, is the primary heresy externally outside of the church, threatening the church and vying for the hearts and minds of the people. Internally, the great heresy in the church is the replacing of the first greatest commandment with the second. And now we are not permitted to offend any of our neighbors at all and can offend God all we want in the process. So the greatest commandment now is love your neighbor as you love yourself. But the problem is if you don't make it the second greatest commandment, if the first greatest commandment is not love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, if you don't start there, you will turn the second commandment into an idol. And a better way of describing it is is a term our colleague Ali Stuckey has used. There's a Reformed minister that uses this term as well. His name is Joe Rigney. The term is toxic empathy. What you heard from N.T. Wright there was a lot of empathizing with human sin and frailty. You know what you did not hear? from the so-called sola scriptura bishop of the Church of England. Aaron, how much Bible was cited in those two clips?
I think 0.
0.0. 0. Nothing. Not cited anywhere. Only perfect thing on the earth, the Word of God. Nowhere to be found in any of those answers by a theologian. Instead, he gave you opinion. The theologian did not say, hey, you knit me in my mother's womb, you formed me in my inmost being. Furthermore, he couldn't even contemplate, before we even find out if the unborn child, if the unborn fetus has a deformity, how it was conceived, if the mom is on her way to the abortion clinic to have the baby killed and gets jackknifed by a drunk driver, he's on the hook for 2 murders. Explain that one there, Mr. NT. Mr. NT wrong. Can you explain that one for me while you're fumbling all over yourself? Can you define severe deformity for me? David let the last remaining son of King Saul sit at his court. He is described as having a severe deformity. His feet did not work. Had to be carried everywhere he went. Is that a severe enough deformity? What would be your severe deformity, sir? And what would be for the Bishop of England? What would be the biblical case for severe deformity? Chapter and verse, I'll wait. Who said it? N.T. Wright or Planned Parenthood's executive? You wouldn't know the difference. Twisting and turning the Word of God to fit the opinions of people. Moral cowardice. But then he takes it a step further by denying really the central doctrine of the entire Christian faith is a requirement. Believing it is a requirement for actually being a Christian. And notice again, it's a relationship with a person. Here's what he doesn't tell you about his friend Marcus Berg. Here's what was left out. Just like he kind of left out the whole part of, well, if what would be the case then of charging a drunk driver with 2 murders if he murders a woman on her way to the abortion clinic with his vehicle while she's still pregnant? He can't even make his own point cogently straight. But then he wants to tell you about this beautiful friend of his named Marcus Borg. Marcus Borg,
I think.
Borg, I'm sorry. Marcus Borg was one of the key people who formed a group in the 1990s called the Jesus Seminar. Just a bunch of Ivy League heretics, no one appointed, no one anointed, no one asked for. Self-appointed, like ye be like God. And they got together and decided they were going to determine what parts of the Bible were still to be believed and which parts were not. And they developed this thing called red letter Christianity, that if it wasn't in red letters, it wasn't to be believed. So in other words, the entire apostolic era post-Pentecost, clarifying now for the fully formed church how we are to live. Erased. Moral confusion. Yes, I will tell you, if you do not believe Jesus Christ was physically resurrected from the dead, you cannot be a Christian. It is the central claim of Christianity. By the way, the person who wrote in the scriptures, if Christ be not raised, then our preaching is in vain and we're all still dead in our sins. Paul, the Apostle Paul, one of the people that Jesus Seminar said we had to erase. Marcus Borg's group. And along the way, there is no N.T. Wright, theologian. What's the root word of theologian, guys? What is it? Theo, which stands for God. Ology means what? Study of. We got lots of his opinions, and we got a lot of N.T. Wrightology. We got the N.T. Wrightology. N.T. Wright's musings on how many babies we can slaughter, how much murder is okay, how many heresies we can tolerate. Well, if a person just seems like they're just okay and really nice and I'm friends with them, he sounds like another former church member in the Anglican Church. who ended up walking away from the church because he claimed, quote, Christianity is a damnable doctrine. That's a direct quote. Even though his father urged him to pursue bishophood in the Anglican Church, he walked away from it because he viewed Christianity as a damnable doctrine because he didn't want to believe that if people he cared about did not seek forgiveness for their sins found only in the atoning work of Jesus Christ at the cross, that they would be in hell separated from God forever. You might know the name of the man I just spoke of. He went on to write a very famous work. His name was Charles Darwin. That's his story arc. Same, there's just no difference in case between Darwin's reasoning and N.T. Wright's. At least, though, Darwin had the good sense to walk away from the church before becoming a heretic. People are watching that and being led astray into hell by what N.T. Wright said there. And for a theologian, no theology. Hey, what's God have to say? Will we have a record of what God thinks of murder? Did he leave us with anything at all we could cite or anything? Nothing? Huh, weird. Then what's he been studying all these years? Every generation has unique challenges, and this gets me to point 2. The boomer generation is going to be the longest living and best living generation maybe in thousands of years, probably going back pre-flood, antediluvian era, since human beings have lived as long and lived as well collectively as this generation. And as a generation, it is struggling to finish well. Because there's a very fine line between, listen, I'm going to be 52 in a month and a half. I am healthier right now at 51 than I was at 41. Advancements in knowledge of nutrition, technology, medicine. So I get it. Not to mention, I'm not really eager to push a whole bunch of people out who are pretty smart and understand the signs of the times, right? Okay, so we need your wisdom. We need your experience, right? On one hand, but that's a fine line between I hang on and 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 I hang on until I learn what it means that I retired as the villain rather than retired soon enough to, have walked out as a hero. I think of Alistair Begg last year. Tranny weddings are just fine. Then when he gets called on and he doubles down, dude, what are you, some 19-year-old blogger? You're Alistair freaking Begg. Do better. You know you're wrong. Stop it. Repent. Just say I was wrong, man. I blew it. Totally blew that one. Because, part of wisdom is humility and repentance. To paraphrase Luther, all of the Christian life is a life of repentance, and he wrote that in German. I looked up what he wrote in German, and the word all in German, guess what it means in English? All. Which means till what? The day we are dead, we need humility and repentance in our lives. So no, N.T. Wright doesn't get away with this because he wrote great things 20 years ago. Stop. Finish better. Do well. Set a better example. And men, I'm just telling you right now, we need to reverse this. The trend line of men not finishing well, you see it in the scriptures, but in this particular generation, it is legion. I sent my son a video after he graduated, welcoming him in full-time into manhood. And I personally vowed to him, I covenant before you, I will finish well. And you hold me accountable to that. And I will know when to hand the reins over to you now. My time is done. I will finish well. That's part of my daily prayer to plead I will finish well. Did I say finish perfectly? Is that what I said?
No.
Nothing wrong with making mistakes. You know what's wrong? When you know you've made a mistake, we know you made one. We know that you know that we know you made one, and you don't own up to it. Don't do that. You've never arrived. You're not that important. You're not that indispensable. You're not invaluable. Nobody is. Do better. Finish well. right, man. I have in going on 19 years in this racket movement business. I've seen some things. I've heard some things. I ain't ever seen or heard anything as crazy, convoluted, that wasn't a script for, season 5 that never aired of House of Cards. Quite like the story of Cory Mills that our network has been covering and uncovering over the last few weeks. And at the center of this, or kind of the MacGuffin of this, is he made the unfortunate life choice of asking out basically the wrong woman. Now, who decided to kind of check in on who this guy is. And that woman now joins us. It's our dear friend, colleague, and sister, Jill Savage. And don't let the good looks fool you, fellas. You better come correct. You better come correct, or she's going to make you regret it. Okay? So, Jill, I don't even know where to begin. I have 15 minutes left in this segment. I'm going to hand it over to you. What the hell is going on here?
Okay, let's dive into it. You and I had about an hour-long phone call, so this is 15 minutes. So we have published 4 stories now at Blaze News about Congressman Cory Mills. And before I get into the stories, I just want to say, why are we doing this, right? Well, one, we believe that people should actually know the truth about who is representing them. But also, it's important to note that before we ever published a single word, Congressman Cory Mills was threatening to sue Blaze for libel, slander, malice, defamation. The only things that we had asked him, we asked him 2 questions. What is your religion? And did this guy marry you? And that proceeded to a 50-minute phone call with our reporter, Peter Giedel. And Cory was just going off on him. And we thought, oh, we're on to something now. It's also important to note that people are scared to death behind the scenes. There are certain people that are being threatened right now that are so scared and terrified to come and talk to us that they won't even do it right now, which is not exactly what you want, Steve, out of your elected officials. And the other part before we jump in, I can tell you right now, the New York Times knows about this story. Politico knows about this story. Are they taking this time to tell you about all the bad things that a Republican congressman is doing? No. Ask yourself why. Because they want us to be locked in with a guy that they can then flip the district in Florida 7. They don't want us to have an option where we can go through and primary him. So what are the stories that they know that we will now tell your audience? Well, it did start out in North Carolina. We were out there with Glenn Beck, myself, Cory Mills. It was a great day. Your audience might remember I talked about it on the Deace group, how it was just a wonderful day volunteering. Well, on the helicopter ride back to the airport at the end of the night, no one was asking the congressman about his personal life, but he proceeded to tell us about it anyway. And Steve, now it's an interesting note, because it's not only that he told me he was single and he wasn't, right? Like everybody's like, yeah, he's trying to get the girl. Hello. Everybody would do that. No, it's the fact that he didn't just say I'm single. He said, I'm completely single. There's absolutely no one in my life, and I'm very lonely. And I know I'm not the only person that he's told that to. So now I'm thinking, well, are you trying to set a pattern? Are you trying to create some, what is the meaning for that? When we can fast forward to February, there's a domestic assault incident that they both now deny after this woman that is his current girlfriend, Sarah Raviani, calls the cops on Cory Mills. It was February 19th. She says to the cops, well, he's my significant other for over a year. I'm no math major, Steve, but we haven't even gotten to a year to October when I met him back originally. So
when he told you he was completely single. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That completely single. Absolutely no one in my life. Very lonely. So I thought, man, if you are as Christian as you claim to be, that is one bold-faced lie for no reason. No one was asking him about this. So then I see a comment on X and somebody says, oh, if you think that's interesting, you should go look at his marriage certificate. So I went and looked. And that is where you see that Cory Mills marries Rana Al-Sadi. And then you get to the bottom of the marriage certificate and you see who marries them. And then the story really takes off from there, because it is an imam, Mohamed Al-Hanouti. What's so special about this man? Well, he's not only the imam at the time that he marries them, he's the mufti of DC. He is the Islamic leader of the area. And he was not only just an imam at a mosque, he was the imam at Dar al-Hijra, better known to the normies as the Al-Qaeda mosque. Okay, so I'm thinking, what the heck is happening? I am diving in, trying to figure out why this Republican congressman is being married by Mohamed al-Houthi, who is an unindicted co-conspirator to the 1993 World Trade Center bombings. Things seem a little interesting at that point in time. So I do more research. I start making more phone calls. And then I figure out that he's not only lied to me, he's lied about a lot of things in his military career. A lot of stolen valor out there. He was an Army medic. There are questions about his Bronze Star. And then you get into his time where he was a private contractor with DynCorp, like a Blackwater type over in Iraq. And at that point, he's telling everybody he's an Army Ranger, he's a sniper. No, he's not. He's an Army medic. They, at that point, then need to get all their paperwork in. Somebody from Blackwater does something they're not supposed to. The State Department says, oh, crap, who are all these guys that we have working for us? You need to resubmit your paperwork. So by the time that comes, Cory, it was the very last day, and we have talked to his supervisor who fired him for not turning in his paperwork. Cory supposedly left his M4, his Glock, and his radio on his bed because he knew he didn't have the paperwork proving that he was an Army Ranger, a sniper, etc. Right? His time had come. So the jig was up. He just left all of his stuff there. And as they say, they had it on video. They watched him walk out on video. A few weeks later, they went back and looked at the tapes. So that's interesting because then we get to this stolen valor part of the story. And I start talking to different people who were over there in Iraq with him. And then at that point in time, now we can enter the FBI into the story. This is where we get really fun, right?
Okay, yeah.
So the FBI is now in, and they're questioning what becomes our sources. What do you know about Congressman Cory Mills and his stolen valor? I know that this woman, Agent Shady Tally Bradley, has questioned somebody that worked with him at DynCorp, another person who's a researcher on this, and another woman who lays out the CoryMillsWatch.com website. And they're just interested in knowing, what do you know? We as the FBI need to figure out what's going on with this man and his stolen valor. Well, the guy in Houston that I was talking to said, oh man, you actually have a lot of information that even I didn't know. Would you be willing, you might be able to help in this story. Would you be willing to talk to the FBI agent? And I said, yeah, I mean, if I can help, you know me, Steve. I'm willing. Let's go.
You're a citizen. Yes.
Let's help. So that was on March 31st that he turns my name over to FBI agent Shady. Well, on April 11th, she goes and meets with the only other Shady FBI agent, goes and meets with the only other female that she has been talking to in this whole ordeal, and they meet at a Starbucks. She's just sipping on her coffee, and she asks this woman if she was willing to become a confidential human source. Now, this woman, again, she runs the website, Cory Mills Watch. She is trying to tell everybody, the entire world, please figure out the lies that this man is telling. She jumps at the opportunity. Oh, I'll do anything. And then the woman asks her, would you be willing to go undercover? There's another lady that we need you to talk to. Well, the only other person, Steve, that was female, that was given her contact info over to the FBI agent was me. So now I'm like, what the heck? There's an FBI agent that I'll tell you now the story that the FBI has given us. They gave us a statement when we reached out to them, which is unprecedented. That many other FBI retirees that have been in the service, 20 plus years were like, I've never seen anything like this. This is what the FBI had to say about this. We are not aware of the conduct in question, but will review the matter immediately. As always, any unethical behavior will be addressed swiftly and appropriately. And then the next day, the FBI came back to us and said, you know what? We want to add to that statement. They said senior leadership was made aware of the situation, which our friend and FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin said that means that they had another meeting on it. And they decided, yeah, you know what? We can tell them this information as well. So that was a kind of quick run through of the 4 stories that we have published at Blaze Media. But there are a lot of other nuggets that are interesting because we could go down a path of who was his wife, Rana al-Sadi. Well, she was a naturalized a citizen here. She was born in Iraq. She moved over here in 2008. And according to her own LinkedIn bio, which was also backed up by a Catholic Herald article in 2008 that, by the way, Rana has framed on the wall in her office, which you can see in social media pictures. She was a translator and cultural appropriations in the Green Zone there in Baghdad. And we got some interesting nuggets there that she lived in a 10-bedroom house in Iraq. And she didn't only just get to bring like herself, her kid, and her parents over when she came over. She got to bring 24 family members over. You know, okay, great.
As one does.
Her and Cory get married. As one does. Her and Cory get married in June of 2014. Within a year, they started an international arms company. Very quickly thereafter, they get a $228 million contract with Iraq. Some people have all the luck, Steve. Where is my $228 million contract? Why can't I get this from the government?
The dots here, either this guy's extremely lucky or someone was financing all of this to make these relationships and these accommodations happen, correct?
Someone was financing it, and that's what we're going to figure out who. So when we go back to the FBI, then you would say there are one of 2 different ways that we would go on this story. Who, if the FBI doesn't know that this investigation is taking place, this is not a sanctioned FBI investigation.
Then she's rogue. Then the agent has gone rogue, right?
It's rogue, or, right? So it's either she's working at the behest of Cory Mills, because these are the 3 people that were leading the charge to make sure that he didn't get reelected. 2 of them had gone on a podcast saying what they knew. The other one ran the website to try and take him down. Shady reached out to our first source on November 26th with her FBI email saying that she had been referred to the case. Well, that's interesting timing, right? Right after you get reelected, you kind of turn around and say, hey, these are the people that know. So it's either that's option 1. Option number 2 is it's another agency using the FBI to figure out what they know, what these people know about Congressman Cory Mills. And there's where it gets a little bit more interesting, because then once we go down that path, just speculative, then you add in all these other things like, oh man, he starts his company. He gets a $228 million contract with Iraq right off the bat. Well, he was a contractor with DynCorp. He was there at the U.S. Embassy. He would run into a lot of people. Okay. Then he worked for a place called Chemonics in 2010, 2011. Steve, if you look up Chemonics, they have $17 billion with a B dollars in USAID funding since 2008. Probably nothing. He then goes to work for a British NGO called Pax Mondal on the behalf of Pakistan. Probably nothing. But you look in and you're like, okay. So there's some agencies that might be looking into him. He said on a Benny Johnson interview that he worked for did a little work for the agencies. If you go to the Glenn Beck interview that he did, the long form Glenn Beck podcast, at the 11-minute mark, he'll tell you that he's a green badger. He was a green badger. If you ask our friends Grok what that means, it says it's most commonly referred to as a CIA term. That's the color of your badge, meaning you're not an official employee, but you're a contractor for them. I will say this is leading us into some very interesting territory with Congressman Cory Mills, and we can't wait to get to the bottom of it.
I've got 2 minutes. What question should I be asking you after everything you just laid out for this audience?
Well, it's always where does the money come from, right? Where do you get the ability to go through? And also, if your audience doesn't know, just to have any business in international arms dealing, you basically have to have the blessing of the CIA at the beginning, right? You can't just go out there. You can't just start up. You and I can't just go out there and be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to sell arms to the Middle East. You can't just do that. So you have to follow the money. So I have heard that he is now telling people that the Mufti didn't marry him in the mosque. He can't go in the mosque, you guys. No. Even though 5 people that we have spoken to here with Blaze Media told us back in 2014 that Congressman Cory Mills told them that he converted to Islam. He denies that. He says he's always a Christian. Nothing to see here. He's trying to tell people right now that no, the Mufti of the area, because the mother-in-law wanted them to be married by an Iraqi, so they started at the top, Steve, as one would. Why wouldn't you just get any low-level imam? No. Let's go with the Mufti. He married them at a Starbucks, is what he's trying to say. Steve, I don't know if you know anything about the Muslim faith, but do you believe? I mean, they're not having like beach weddings out there. Go ahead, Todd. Yeah.
I have a question.
You got about a minute.
Yeah.
When the Blaze rightly dramatizes this as a 10-part series, will you be playing yourself, Jill, or which actress do you want to play you? Because what
I don't
the hell?
know. That you guys, as Steve knows, this isn't even the half of it.
Oh, no.
I love it, though. I love it, Steve, because, and his team, of course, is going to have to frame this in a way that's going to be, beneficial to him. They're saying that I am holding a grudge, that I am bitter or whatnot. Steve, there will be other dates. Will there ever be another story that goes as deep and crazy as this one?
I know a screenwriter. He's like the guy you're talking to right now.
It's nuts. It's
that's not even the half of it. That's what we've published so far.
Incredible. Jill, watch your back, and I'm dead serious, sister.
Yeah.
All right, Hour 2 is next. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzen and Aaron McIntire. I'm Steve Deace. Don't forget to let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the show steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE, steve@stevedeace.com. And then you can also like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind doing this, if you are into the podcast side of things, leave us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have. Let's keep those going. We appreciate every single one of them. Thank you. Then hit subscribe, or on Apple iTunes, follow. And that way, every time we do a new episode, it shows up in your feed as well. And so many of you have done that too. So let's keep that going as well. And we appreciate all of those as well. Got a nice note from Jeffrey Morris in Reno, Nevada. We also got some Miracle Made sheets. Good sheets, sound purchase. Have you considered buying a twin set and taking them with you when you're on your travels? I actually had not thought about that as a potential life hack, because I've got 3 speaking engagements this month. One of them I'm leaving for today. Next week is Dallas, and then Southern California at the end of the month. All warm places where temperature regulating at night matters, right? Jeffrey might be onto something, man. I love my Miracle Made sheets. They do have temperature regulating for making you have the better quality of sleep that you can have with the silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA to help regulate your temperature with thermoregulating all night long. They came on board with us in 2023. And since we went to Miracle Made, the last 2 summers in a row, I have not had to run the ceiling fan to augment the AC to stay cool enough at night. That's how cash money these sheets are. They're also very comfy. That same silver-infused fabric also helps with self-cleaning as well. It ends up cleaning off about 99.7% of bacterial growth on your sheets, so they stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than the other sheets you buy. So upgrade your sleep right now as the weather's heating up by going to trymiracle.com/Deace and get your Miracle Made sheets today. And then if you use the promo code Deace, well, frankly, if you just go to trymiracle.com/Deace, you're going to get up to 40% off. But then if you use the promo code Deace at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an additional 20% off as well. And they're so confident in their product, they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with the Miracle Made right now by going to trymiracle.com/Deace and using the code Deace to claim the extra discount on top of the discount you already get by going to trymiracle.com/Deace. Trymiracle.com/Deace, code Deace at checkout for trymiracle.com/Deace. Use the code Deace at checkout. And then also, don't forget, we are running low. We're almost to the very end of the special full cover or full-sized hardcover autographed editions of Richie Meets the Rainbow. We've got just a couple hundred of these left before we go to retail later this week. So if you want to get your copy autographed by yours truly, RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com, Richie, R-I-C-H-I-E. RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com is where you can go to get your autographed edition, hardcover Pride edition, just for you at RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com, R-I-C-H-I-E, for RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. All right, guys, are we ready for some fake news or not this week?
You bet.
Yes.
All right, I have selected 4 things that caught my attention so far the last few days. So we're early in the week. So far this week, these 4 things have caught my attention, or 3 things caught my attention on X. And then one of them is something that I posted on X that I hope caught other people's attention. All right. We're going to discuss all 4 of these, and you guys are going to tell me if you think they're fake news or not. All right. So this is a cutout from an analysis from Nate Silver, the founder of 538, who called one election right in 2012 and turned that into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, and is now, he's kind of gone down the Bill Maher story arc, where he's still very left-wing, but likes to lecture Democrats for being too left-wing and dumb. Is that a fair description of Nate Silver's current trajectory? Is that fair?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I can't tell if he's trying to Jake Tapper us right now, or if there's a actual light in the attic.
Yeah, he's somewhere between Jake Tapper and Bill Maher. Yeah. Somewhere in that ether, okay? All right, so here's what he had to say. All right, put that back up there, Aaron. He says, although I've seen it written about elsewhere, Nate Silver writes, I was honestly surprised by how strong the relationship is between Democrats and antidepressants and therapy. Among voters, and Aaron, you alluded to this in your montage earlier in the last hour, among voters who report poor mental health, liberals outnumber conservatives 45-19. Among those who report excellent mental health, conservatives outnumber liberals 51-20. So the young men that Democrats have trouble with aren't necessarily the ones who have been captured by the conservative manosphere or who are looking for a helping hand. Rather, it's those who report relatively high mental health and see Democrats as being too neurotic and perhaps constraining their opportunity to compete and reap the rewards of their work. Is that analysis by Nate Silver fake news or not?
It's not fake news. There's a, and this speaks to what I was talking about when, I don't know, in the last couple months showed that graph of women plummeting or in terms of their connection to the Democrat Party. I mean, that just even getting tighter than them, and men apparently on the upswing, becoming more conservative. I think this, as I said, I don't think it's really ultimately that they're conservative. They're principled. They're just rejecting this chaotic, grating narcissism and are choosing anything that appears to be an alternative. I think there's a lot of that going on in here, because I don't think, on the one hand, just because you have mental health issues, whatever they are, you are inherently liberal. I also don't think that what these guys are doing, what they're embracing, is inherently positive. Again, it's more of a rejection. And the reason mental health has become so connected to being a liberal, not because it's a one-to-one correlation, but because we've taken this has to do with what Steve spoke about yesterday. We took the cross down as our guidepost. It didn't mean that bad things didn't happen to good people and other things like that, but that was our plumb line. Because we took that down now and replaced it with whatever you want to put there, I think you're going to get mental health, just like a lot of other things, turned into an idol. I think that's what's pretty much going on here.
Are you saying it's because we are ignoring the fact that we are body, soul, and spirit, right? And the soul being mind, emotions, instincts, the things that uniquely make us, human and not just another member of the animal kingdom, and the eternal spirit we take with us when this mortal body fails into the next life. That the worldview the vast majority of Democrats ascribe to rejects that, and has replaced instead this idea that everything is a matter of chemicals. Or as Yuval Harari said in the clip that Aaron shared last week, there are no purposes, only causes, right? So the right chemicals, starting with a single-celled protein, clashed one day and created this whole thing that we now call the universe. Okay. Yeah. And so since there are no great purposes, only causes, if whatever's chemically going on with you, if we alter the chemical makeup in one way and listen, there can be chemical imbalances. If my wife was here, she's a professional therapist, she would tell you, then she does it with a biblical worldview, she would tell you there is such thing as a chemical imbalance. But the idea that is the panacea answer for absolutely everything, if you remove the soul and from your guidelines, that will be the answer to everything. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Oh, that's definitely it. But to make it the elevator speech as simple as possible, when you have a broken leg, you have a broken leg. You are right. Sick or ill. You need to get better. When you have mental health problems, you are ill. You need to deal with that. You need to treat it, and you need to fix it. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. But if you anoint all these things, look how special I am because of these things. If you turn them to an idol, you will take something that isn't inherently good or bad, and you will become a bad person because of it. That's what's happening. We are creating supervillains because they think something that should be treated is now making them special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge part of this, romanticizing a lack of mental health. I had a slightly different read on this. If the vibe shift that we think we are seeing in the culture truly is real and it has legs and it's the beginning of some form of revival, and I'm not talking about shiny, happy people revival. I'm talking about, hey, things might get worse before they get better, but truly we are more open to the things, God's order for this world, God's laws. Things like this, I think, might be a leading indicator. Factoids like this could be a leading indicator, because here's why. The vast majority of what we call mental health issues, vast majority, I didn't say all, but the vast majority of what we call mental health issues or illnesses are actually symptomatic of a disordered life. A disordered life. A life that is not put in the order where things are put in places of primacy where they should be. You don't view the world through the lens of any sort of a biblical or some sort of biblical worldview. It's totally disordered. So your affections are disordered. What does that also say? You don't believe life has a purpose, or else if you believed life had a purpose, You would have things in order in your life. But conservatives outstripping liberals in terms of excellent mental health, 51-20, that is symbolic or symptomatic of an ordered life. You believe life has a purpose. This is not a mental...
Hence you're trying to conserve that order.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is not a commentary about mental health. This is a spiritual...
Agreed.
A spiritual
100%.
Commentary.
Yep.
And nothing less. And Todd, I don't think this necessarily contradicts anything that you were spelling out there. But the really disastrous part of this is the romanticizing of pathology. That I am special because I am sick. I'm special because
That's what I'm saying.
I'm disordered.
Yeah.
I'm
Forms
special.
my identity.
My identity is patterned around things of the human experience that are just that are a result of sin. But now I'm prizing that. It's no different from the Pride Month that we're in right now. The artist formerly known as Pride Month. I'm wearing my sin as an identity.
It's an idol. You can turn anything into an idol. And just because we have this chaos, running away from it is commendable on some level. But on the right, there's a lot of people on the so-called right that they're the ones who are saying, and I think there's a lot of men who think they have excellent mental health, but they actually look like Andrew Tate. I'm not saying they're not suffering from depression, but they're suffering from something. I mean, this is way more complex than we're allowed to get into with the amount of time that we have.
Agreed. Let me rephrase it another way. Given the likely limits of Nate Silver's worldview, and remember, no one can rise above their own worldview. So given the likely limits of Nate Silver's worldview, fake news or not, this is probably the best way he is capable of explaining this. It's insufficient. You both agree it's an insufficient explanation. But given the limits of his worldview, it's probably the best that he could actually do.
Yeah, I think so.
Fair?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to this one next. This one's from yours truly. All right. So I try to post a theology question each weekday on social media. I remember about 90% of the time. All right. 10% of the time I don't. This was yesterday's. True or false? If you think it's even remotely possible your pastor would recognize someone's fake pronouns, you should never go back to that church ever again. True or false?
True.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Another way of saying fake news or not. So you guys think that is not fake
news?
Yeah, that's not fake news.
How many people then you think probably you're going to have to be looking for different churches? Probably.
Way too many.
Probably way too many. Yeah. Probably way too many. And I think we should explain again why. Because the disorder that you just talked about, and this is, Liz Wheeler, the piece that we mentioned yesterday on the show, that she said in response to Glenn Greenwald, she used that same terminology that you just used, order. Okay? When I am capable, like we talked about with Scott Besson yesterday. Scott Besson is not demanding that I genuflect to his homosexual sin in order to recognize that there are merits to him as an individual made in the likeness and image of God. And he is, as far as we know right now, and we can see, okay, is admirably to laudably utilizing those instincts and traits to serve what we, the three of us, believe are good, true, and beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so even though we both agree that he is in unrepentant sin that puts his mortal soul, his eternal soul, in mortal danger, all three of us agree on this, correct? All right, but last hour I said, hey, with N.T. Wright, you can't have love your neighbor as you love yourself ahead of love the Lord your God while they are so strength and mind. But we also can't just get rid of love your neighbor as you love yourself either. Okay. All right. So I still have to love Scott Besant as I love my neighbor because he is my neighbor. Jesus said, they asked you who's my neighbor, everybody. Okay. So that being said, so as long as Scott Besant does not demand that I disobey God to honor him, I am to honor Scott Besant, correct? Mm-hmm. But when Scott Besson asks me, or if he were to ask me, in order to honor me, you must dishonor God, then who do I choose? Scott Besson or God? God. Who does N.T. Wright choose in the two clips that Aaron played last hour?
The opposite.
The opposite. He chose people. That's not a seminar in theology. That was a seminar in people pleasing. Were those two clips by N.T. Wright last hour? All right. Here's how this is how this applies to the tranny issue. And it does explain why even people who are caught up deep in the throes of homosexuality also find themselves to be on our side on the tranny issue. Okay? Because the tranny issue, if we didn't get the video of Glenn Greenwald's kink with the 19-year-old male prostitute and the maid outfit and the methamphetamine, would we have any way of knowing that that's what was going on in that home?
Probably not.
No, we've had no way of knowing, except for the video leaked, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. If Glenn Greenwald decided he was a woman, would we know what was going on? Everywhere he went, we'd know, right? Because it would be out in our faces. What compelled us to comment on what was going on Glenn Greenwald's home yesterday? It came out. Now I am being asked to essentially look the other way. That somehow Glenn Greenwald's reporting is so important that we're to overlook the fact he's got children in his home with a prostitute and meth. See what I'm saying? Okay? No. I may admire aspects of Glenn Greenwald's work, but I do not pick Glenn Greenwald ahead of God. Okay? What the tranny is asking you to do all the time is to put him ahead of him or her ahead of God. Because there is no way to affirm any aspect of who the tranny is without doing so. Starting with use my pronouns. No, I can't do that. I won't do it. So you are from the moment we engage, you are forcing your disorder upon me. You put me in no other position but to say no and oppose.
Since we're talking theologically, you're not just forcing a disorder, you're forcing your sin upon you.
Correct.
That gives up the whole game.
Correct. You do the trannyism that draws no distinction the way other forms of sexual sin do. I may have no idea if I'm not on OnlyFans, I may have no idea that my next door neighbor is a porn star, and I have my kids going over there and playing in the afternoons with her kids, right? But then when I find out that she is on OnlyFans and a porn star, am I reconsidering the decision about putting my kids over there in the afternoon?
Should be.
But until I know, I don't know, and so I give her the benefit of the doubt by loving my neighbor as I love myself, right? But the minute my female neighbor decides I'm a dude, I know right away. See what I'm saying? And so right away, I'm like, my kid is never going over there ever again. The tranny madness provides no room for distinction.
But
it provides no room for love your neighbor as you love yourself. It provides no room for it. We cannot give grace and mercy to each other. It is strictly imposition. I am permitted to impose on reality, and you must deny reality on my behalf. Well, ultimately, who is the author of reality?
God.
So therefore, the tranny is asking me to therefore worship whom? Him. I cannot do that, and I won't. That's an important distinction to understand why this is an absolute verboten no-go zone, period.
Well, it's because it doesn't even let grace and mercy in. It's lying to being part of this lie as a pastor isn't grace or mercy. Grace or mercy is saying, you want me to do this? No. But if you still want to come to this place and worship, work on this, figure this out, talk with me, we can do that. But that's grace and mercy right there, as long as it doesn't give into the lie. The second you give into the lie is the foundation of this entire relationship, grace and mercy can't possibly exist.
I think this is what I've said for years now about this dynamic. You know, sex outside of marriage is a natural perversion of God's law. Natural. So it's in line with how God created us, but it is a perversion of his law. Homosexuality is unnatural perversion. This is not how we were made. This is not how God designed us. Transgenderism is a rejection of reality.
Yes.
And in that rejection of reality, they are asking you to deny reality to accommodate them. That's about as pithy as I can sum that up.
And it is said perfectly. All right, number 3. We have it?
Oh, I thought you were going to set that up.
No,
sorry.
My bad.
Where do you think the party goes from here?
Part of the reason why they have resorted to lawfare as effectively their entire political strategy is because they have an unsellable ideology. In other words, they're committed in a popular democracy. They're committed to a series of beliefs that are like 10, 20% in support. So they have to be corrupt to get anything done. Men and women's sports, as President says, completely open borders to the worst criminals on the face of the earth, people guilty of child predation, murder, even people who are guilty of violent torture and beating and killing and just senseless slaughtering. And they're let in without limitation for 4 years, right? A political party that's committed to raising taxes on everybody, right? A political party that is against the police, that wants to defund the police in your community, that wants to let rioters run free. And the punching bag for all of this are the hardworking American citizens. The people who do it right, they're the ones who are getting the brunt of it every day, economically, socially, culturally. So it's an unwinnable political message. If we can accomplish these reforms to just have a free and fair society, the Democrats are doomed. They cannot compete or operate in a fair system, which is why they have to rig it.
What are you guys doing?
That is senior White House advisor Stephen Miller saying Democrats have to cheat, have to rig a system because their ideas simply cannot win over the American people on the basis, in majority, on the basis of their own merit, fake news or not.
Actually, as great as this is fake news because they did win on this for a very, very long time amongst a very comfortable people. But it did reach a point where questions started to be asked. And that's where I think I see and raise him because the emotional heft of what he's saying is let me provide this. It's worse because it's not that they just have to do it. They want to do it. They love to do it. This has to do with the mental health question we just asked, and it's tied in. This is their mental health. Making sure other people feel their pain. Oh, it gives them great joy. So it's actually worse than he said. But this overestimates the American people, quite frankly, because, and Steve talked about this yesterday, he talked about this late last week, about I just want to be left alone. We had all kinds of lies and excuses that we, the normies, told ourselves, all right? They got away with a lot of this.
He is absolutely not fake news. Their ideas cannot win. But they still can. It's less than 20 years ago. California, the People's Republic of California, voted to define marriage as between one man and one woman. Less than 20 years ago. 7 years later, we got, was it Obergefell? Yeah, Obergefell. They are playing a long game, and they have been playing a long game. I do believe they have come and exhausted a lot of their lies, a lot of their deceptions. That's why there's a lot of hand-wringing on the Democrat side of the aisle about messaging, authenticity. How do we bring more people, normal people into the fold? I think they have come to a point, though, where they have exhausted a lot of their lies and deceptions. And so they're worried right now, maybe not existentially, but they're worried about how can we make sure we continue to make sure people are in a trance? Mm-hmm. That's what they're worrying about. When they talk about their messaging issues, they're saying, how do we put people back into a trance? Because things like Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you, that's a freaking neutron bomb. And it got dropped on their faces over and over and over again. That phrase is worth 1,000,000 words. That's how they were defined. Say what you want about President Trump. He has been an expert, a master at branding his opponents before they brand him. Mm-hmm. And that's what they are worried about right now. So I think on the merits of their arguments, they cannot win. But they still can, because they don't actually argue the merits. They've gotten away with not arguing the merits of their arguments.
Jesse, it took a guy like Trump. The merits of the arguments kept working over soft-headed Republicans forever. Since it's in our montage, guess who their arguments just worked on as well? N.T. Wright. He was using their talking points because at the end of his life, he decided they worked. So this is one of our blind spots. I don't know much about the faith life of the subject of ours,
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller, yes. But we fall for this too often. They have worked on us for a long time. And why did it take the likes of Donald Trump to break that mold? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. It's way worse. We wanted to lie for a long time, too.
I think I love your analysis. What I'm about to say next, Todd, what I'm about to say next is just a general. We're not going to have time to get into the fourth one because that's going to be a longer conversation. So we'll skip that for this week. But just on Stephen Miller, just as a standalone, I am trying to think of on our side when we've ever had a senior voice of the White Horse of the White House, White Horse, senior thing. Voice of the White House that has been so effective.
I agree.
In worldview deduction and deconstruction as a messenger. I mean, it is my man keeps it 100 on the daily. I mean, it is.
Yep.
I mean, it is something to watch what he does. And I think, he was in the first term too. But the him and Bannon and that group, I think Trump was really bashful about those people being out there. So we got Anthony Scaramucci, Omarosa, and Sean Spicer instead, right?
Correct.
Okay. And again, in this administration, he has come out swinging. These are the people that are actually now the faces of the administration and actually making the arguments on its behalf.
You're proving my point. We were buying the arguments then. To some degree.
To some degree. I mean, even though Trump gets elected by deconstructing their arguments,
I know.
His first impulse when he gets there, well, let me put Elaine Chao in my administration, Mitch McConnell's wife, and let me put Reince Priebus as the guy who gave us the autopsy after Romney lost, that we had to give up on issues like immigration to win again. So let me make him my chief of staff, right? I mean, I think, even he, I think, took some time to learn that. I absolutely believe that Trump thought a lot of the political opposition that we were up against the first time he ran was just manufactured for effect.
Right.
And there really weren't, except for the fact Democrats had given up on working people. I do think Trump felt strongly about that. Okay. But I think he thought that a lot of the other differences were largely just contrivances driven, for effect, because that's the world he comes out of. Yes. Theatrics, reality TV, right? Yes. Okay. Contrived controversy and crises. And I think after everything he lived through, that's also, I think, taking that shot to the face was such a crystallizing moment. Right. Because I think that was just one final reminder. No. The enemies you have are very, very real, and they will not be negotiated with. They will only be defeated. All right, we'll come back with Pop Culture Tuesday here in a moment. Friends, your ongoing generosity has been a lifeline for thousands of people in Israel through our partnership with Voice of Judah Israel. For example, just last month, an 89-year-old Holocaust survivor, she had food on her table because of you guys. Yet there's still more to do there. But I mean, let's first and foremost thank you guys for everything you've done. You guys are helping to deliver critical aid to over 1,200 vulnerable families each month over the past year there in the Holy Land. And it's not just the living essentials, though, that Voice of Judah Israel provides. If they were just doing that, we would not be partnering with them. There's other organizations out there that can do that well, too. But the reason we're partnering with them, they are a full-fledged, sevenfold messianic ministry. They are teaching word and sacrament. They're using these good works as a means to preach the good news. They're taking the gospel back to the place that gave it to the rest of us. And this is how God's economy works. And it is at work right now through the work that we are doing through Voice and alongside of Voice of Judah Israel. So let's keep it going. Go to vojisrael.org/Steve. For as little as $35 a month, you can provide meals for a family there in the Holy Land that needs it and create an opportunity to share the gospel of Messiah Yeshua with them as well. vojisrael.org/Steve. That's VOJ for Voice of Judah. vojisrael.org/Steve. And the crazy story that Jill Savage was telling us about Cory Mills, we're doing some exclusive work on that right now at Blaze TV. We're doing some other crazy work right now on George Floyd with a new documentary about to drop right now. You can see the first, I think it's 10 minutes for free on YouTube if you search BlazeTV in Minneapolis. But if you want to see the whole thing, as 3 active duty Minneapolis police officers come forward to tell us what really happened there. All right, you want to see the full thing unfiltered. You got to be a Blaze TV subscriber. BlazeTV.com/Deace is where you can go. Use the promo code Deace to get $20 off your annual subscription. It comes out to $8 a month, or essentially what you're paying for one of those coffees per day. All right, sign up, support unrelenting journalism, see what the media won't show you. BlazeTV.com/Deace. Use the promo code Deace.
And Julio Rosas joins us tomorrow.
That's right. He is one of the guys that's been leading that investigation. So thank you for that reminder. Looking forward to that conversation. Okay. Pop Culture Tuesday. I want you guys to see this from a guy I have a lot of respect for, Matt Walsh over at Daily Wire, and tell me if you guys agree or disagree. All right? Matt says, 5 years ago, every major corporation in the country spent the entire month of June shoving LGBTQ plus FU propaganda in our faces. Today, Pride Month is in shambles. This change did not happen by accident. It's the role of a strategic campaign by some of us on the right. It's a real win. We should acknowledge that and celebrate it. What do you guys think as we look at the intersection between what's trending in popular culture and what we as conservatives are trying to conserve? So typically we're used to Pride Month being what's trending. I kind of feel like, in some respects, Pride Month this year feels a little bit like The View. That we might be talking about it and riffing off of it to bury it more than its promulgators are even talking about it per se. Okay? But what do you think? Is Matt right?
I'm kind of like Stephen Miller. I didn't expect to be this contrarian today, but my analysis of Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller broadly doing great things and over the target, and has part of that specific analysis right. Same with Matt Walsh. He deserves a ton of credit. Met him in the airport, by the way, for the first time in person. He was very pleasant. He deserves a ton of credit, probably as much as any one individual, for stemming the tide. So Pride Month clearly is not on offense in the same way that it was just very recently in many different ways. And not just Pride Month, what Matt did in Nashville in attacking the Vanderbilt hospital there. Yep. I mean, so important. So they've been pushed back. But now it's really, and again, pointing just to what Steve talked about yesterday, that picture still existed yesterday. Retaking ground in the name of the good and true of the beautiful and making sure that the crossing's there instead of the trans flag, that's the next step. And I don't think we should lie to ourselves. I don't think that's what he's doing. It's a mistake, a trap we fall into, that the victory is bigger than it actually is. All right? You can celebrate all the actual victories you want, because moving forward, there's a lot more work to do, and we just like to get comfortable. And I'll tell you what, yes, while there isn't the full onslaught that we felt, there's a reason why some of the biggest corporations in America that hold the hearts and minds of people in as big an idolatrous sense as perhaps there is in this modern age, still didn't even think twice as soon as the clock struck 12:01 on June 1st. Who sprinted out? Not caring what anybody thought about them with their propaganda. The NFL? Disney? Because they have a sense of who their people are, and especially with the NFL. Disney fans have pulled back to some extent, but there's all kinds of Christians who spend all their money on that stuff, and you know it. And right in their faces, they think, we're going to do it anyways because we think we've got at least enough of you. So don't. The RINs are real. We need to be a lot more. Look that one honestly in the mirror, because the fact that they did that is not something you can just shift aside. Smash the idols, all of them.
All right. I have a response for you, but I want to make I want to make sure it doesn't trip on what Aaron may say, not knowing what Aaron's about to say. So Aaron, I'll let you go ahead first.
So I think this moment that we're in kind of reminds me of, I'm doing the I'm doing the thing. This reminds me of the superhero movies, but I think it's apropos. I think it's an end game where Thor and Iron Man are giving Thanos hell. And Iron Man winds up with his huge battering ram fist, smacks Thanos right on the cheek, and Thanos turns to him and said, "All this for a little drop of blood." That's kind of what it feels like to me. Now, that is not taking away from some of the real wins and some of the real shifts that I think are happening and have happened in no uncertain terms, thanks to people like Matt Walsh. I do think if just off the top of my head, gun pointed at my head, if you had to choose a moment where it felt like maybe the worst excesses of globo-homoism, if you want to call it that, the rainbow jihad, those started to get blunted, it would have been What Is a Woman? Because we started to do the Homer Simpson. I think they started to do kind of the Homer Simpson back into the Bush gif a little bit when that came out, just because of how damning and embarrassing it was for that entire ideology. So I'm not taking anything away from him, but there is so much more work to do. We will see videos this year. We will see videos of grown men twerking in front of children at pride parades. We will see videos this June. Now, I'd be happy if that weren't the case. I would rather never see those videos. But as long as people, grown adults anywhere in this country, feel that they can legally get away with something like that, this thing is nowhere close to being finished.
Agree. All right. I'm glad I let you go first. I'm going to, maybe pushback is too strong, because I don't disagree with what you guys are saying in the meta. But I think the context of the person who is making the statement we're responding to, I think, matters greatly. Because of all the things you have said about Matt, and Matt's willingness to put his money where his mouth is, Matt's willingness to get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Matt is uniquely qualified to pause and take a victory lap here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, for sure. He does.
And in many respects, I would, to use your movie analogy, I would argue people like Matt are who stopped Thanos from snapping in the first place, because of the things that you cited he's done throughout the course of his career. Okay. So I think you would be hard pressed to not argue, in comparison to what we have seen in the last decade, Pride Month is in shambles. I mean, the fact that you can walk into the front foyer of a Target in Southern California now, and there's not a single shibboleth of the damned sitting there to feast your eyes upon as you walk in SoCal, is indicative of retreat. I don't view Matt as somebody who goes for shallow talking points on our side and engagement farming, and I just don't view him as one of those figures, because I don't think that he is. And so I think I'm not so much concerned about stopping to celebrate if he's the one calling for the period of jubilee here, because I just have every bit of confidence here. This isn't Candace Owens doing it, just to put a name on a face on a name on a face.
I don't think Aaron and I disagree with you at all.
Yeah, that's why I said I think pushback is too strong a language for how I'm going to respond to you guys, because I don't disagree with anything you guys said in the meta at all. But I think in the micro, I think this is okay to celebrate. I do, particularly because Matt is the one calling for the celebration. It's a little bit like we won a playoff game, all right? Maybe one playoff series. We didn't win the Stanley Cup. We didn't win the NBA Finals. We didn't win the Super Bowl, okay? But it's okay to celebrate the fact this was a win-or-go-home game, right? We lose, season is over, right? Okay? We won this round, all right? Doesn't mean they're just handing us trophies. All right, doesn't mean we just sit around and, and hosanna each other with palm branches. But given the fact we did win a survivor match, lose or go home, okay, I do think it's okay to stop and celebrate this, particularly because somebody like Matt, who does get his hands dirty and has been a real leader here, not just an engagement farmer or grifter, is the one making the claim. And I think it's okay to celebrate all wins, because I don't think Matt is the kind of leader that's going to let us turn around and get complacent 48 hours from now at the same time.
I just wish he would have been more selfish about it and said I instead of we, because he did a lot of work. A lot of people claiming the we in this thing didn't do a damn thing. And that's why my kids are in a different school district now. They didn't do it. And you're like, yeah, they were crazy people, and that's nonsense. But you did what? Complain behind an account? You did nothing. You did nothing. That's what pisses me off. Matt Walsh did a Herculean effort. But our side, again, we fall for a lot of BS. And that's a theme apparently on the show today. We cannot go back thinking about and cherishing the same lies that got us this point. We almost lost it all on a number of fronts.
Right.
And now we're back treading water again. Like, guys, we've totally got it. Go watch what Steve said. I didn't say a word of it yesterday, top of the hour, because that's absolutely true. We have got to go back. If we don't, what Matt Walsh said, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, accepting first place medals that you don't deserve is for the troons. It's not for those who say they are on the side of the truth. At the same time, though, do you deserve a water break? Yeah. Do you deserve a handshake, a high five, an attaboy, a helmet sticker? People like Matt Walsh?
Yes.
Absolutely they do. Yes. And so I think to sum this up, we have to be, I've harped on this over and over again. We have to be realists, but we can't just stay at realism. It has to be working towards something good, true, and beautiful. It is true that the worst excesses of the rainbow jihad, I believe, have been blunted. And not recognizing that, not taking yes for an answer when there are lowercase y yeses to be had. I think that can be just as damaging for a movement as just completely saying that no, we're nowhere near victory. Victory is not attainable. It's okay to say yes. It's okay to have some attaboys every now and again. We can't just be perpetually stuck in, well, there's realism, there's optimism. We can't just be stuck in the pessimistic mindset all of the time. We can't do that. So I think it's okay to assess and say, we are making progress here. Not the same progress that we're talking about with the progress pride, but we are making progress, but there's a long ways to go.
Let's just not ask Matt Walsh to do everything next time. Let's not all ask Steve Deace or say hosannas about him. Thank you for saving during COVID. And then you get a hangnail on another issue a couple weeks later, and now Steve's dead to you. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. We don't have anything that's sustainable yet. That's what worries me. And I don't want to go back on, smelling our farts, because it was exhausting then. It's only going to be more exhausting now.
Have you seen that story of the guy who was ticked that his girlfriend dumped him? So when she was in the hospital, he went in to see her and bare-bottomed farted in her face. She ended up with a multi-year E. coli sinus infection from it.
I'm choosing to believe that story is not real, because I don't want it to be.
Man, I just got...
Were you discussing that on overtime?
Listen to what Steve said at the top of yesterday, because it's the most important. Have you heard the one? My goodness. Help me help you.
I hear you. That was poorly timed, I will admit. But I'm a victim here. You threw the word out there, and like a dog to a bone, man. Like a dog to a bone. All right? Oh, gosh. All right, so we ran out of time during Fake News or Not to get to the fourth thing I had set aside for us to discuss. We're going to do that in the overtime today. For Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. Don't forget code Deace. You get a discounted subscription, blazetv.com/Deace, code Deace. And what we're going to be discussing is Trump now going after the Federalist Society. That is kind of the chief arm of the conservative legal community. And you guys know how much I love those folks. We're pals. We've been pals for many years, me and those folks. No? Not really. So Trump is actually going after them by name. And we're going to We're going to discuss that in the overtime today and whether we think what Trump has to say about that is fake news or not. It's not fake news. He's right. Okay. But we'll discuss it. We'll see what you guys have to say. All right. Now that you guys have had an hour to digest what Jill Savage came on here and said, because we just didn't have any time after the fact.
I told you after the break, I'm trying to come up with some sort of clever pop culture analogy or some sort of clever historical analogy for this story. And I'm really coming up empty. There's nothing that really does this justice. No simile that does this justice. It is just the most bizarre thing. Just the way, not only the story itself, but the way it has unfolded is just bizarre beyond words.
In my opinion, Cory Mills is an asset, either a foreign asset or an intelligent asset. Someone had to bankroll all of these Walter Mitty-esque instances he just happens to find himself in.
And all of this is on some level the essence of the deep state. There's a lot of craziness like this that is just going on corporately, and that's a terrible thing.
All right, we're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.